Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Today, my dear friends, we're celebrating Wednesday of the 33rd week in the ordinary time. And the gospel that we have heard, accompanied by the visions of John in the book of Revelations that we have heard in the first reading, are all part of this closing of the liturgical year. That's why it sounded very familiar. The gospel sounded very familiar because it is the same story that we have heard last Sunday, but it is from Saint Luke. Today's parable, the parable came from Saint Luke, kaya hindi siya gumamit nung, like for example, the word talent. Luke was somehow straightforward in his parable, the parable that Jesus gave. Pera agad, yaman agad yung binanggit niya. But Luke was so detailed, with the parable. Like for example, the nobleman. The nobleman. In the Gospel of Mark, we have heard of a man going on a journey. But in this gospel, we hear of Luke telling us a noble man, emphasizing who this person is. He is a noble man. And he went away to a distant country, sabi ni Saint Luke, to obtain the kingship. To obtain the kingship. And so he was very particular about these details because they all point out to Jesus. They all point out to Jesus. And we know how the gospel began, He was speaking to the people, near Jerusalem. And they thought of the kingdom of God as something that would appear immediately. Yun ang sabi ni Saint Luke. Ang ganda ng mga details sa Saint Luke. Yung mga tao daw na malapit na sa Jerusalem, ang iniisip nila ay darating na yung kaharian ng Diyos. Pero yung kaharian na iniisip nila ay yung biglaang pagbabago ng mga bagay. Jesus, later on, will be ascending into heaven, promising his return later on. So parehas yung imagery, parehas yung imagery. And that was the context. This noble man, Jesus, will leave and will return to obtain his kingship. To obtain his kingship. And Luke emphasized that kingship not for the sake of the nobleman himself. It is always in reference to those who will be left behind. And so we see the continuation. He called his servants. After saying he will be obtaining the kingship, he called his servants. The nobleman desired that these servants share in whatever he will be obtaining for himself. Na itong mga taong ito, yung mga alagad, alipin niya, ay magkaroon ng bahagi doon sa kanyang makakamtan. And so he entrusted the coins to them. Katulad nung narinig natin last Sunday. At sa kanyang pagbabalik, the nobleman is now king. Why did he return? Is it because of the money? Is it because of the money? There is a detail here in the Gospel of Luke that is very important. Sabi dito, when he returned, after obtaining his kingship, tinawag niya yung mga alagad niya. Why? To learn what they had gained by trading. To learn what they had gained by trading. Ano yung kanilang nakuha? Ano yung kanilang nakuha? What did they earn? He returned and called them. Remember that before he left, he called them also. He called them because the nobleman wanted these servants to share, to have a share in what he was going to obtain. And now that he has obtained it, he wanted these servants, he wanted to know what these servants gained for themselves. As we have mentioned last Sunday, you will not just entrust your property to somebody unless you care for them, unless you know that it will benefit them, unless you trust them. And so the nobleman, the desire of the nobleman for these servants to have a share in his kingship was not just at all on the level of practical things. He wanted them to have a kind of feeling different from that of the servants, of being servants. Magkaroon sila ng bahagi sa buhay ng hari. We know the rest of the story. The first two doubled the coins, but the last one did not. And so, he did not have a share in the kingship of the nobleman. The attitude of the last servant hindered him from having a share in the kingship of the nobleman. Attitude, my friends, is the key. Your attitude towards what He offers you. Nakaranas na ba kayo ng taong ganun? Yung gusto mong tulungan, tinutulungan mo na, pero parang ikaw pa yung masama. Binibigyan mo na, pero parang kulang pa rin yung binibigay mo. Inaaruga mo na, pero pagsasamantalahan ka pa, gagawan ka pa ng pangit. You know that feeling? You know that experience? Attitude. Attitude. And so, the person whom you are helping is not really benefiting in the truest sense of the word, help, because of his attitude. Because one's help must really help the person, not just in practical ways, but the person within. But because of the attitude of these people, they are hindered from benefiting. Hindi talaga sila natutulungan. O ayaw nilang matulungan ng kanilang sarili. Kaya pagkatapos ng ilang taon mong tinulungan, wala namang nagbago sa kanila. Ganun pa rin. Attitude. The third servant in the gospel was hindered from benefiting, from having a share in the kingship of the nobleman because of his attitude. Now, drawing closer to the end of the liturgical year, by Sunday we will be celebrating Christ the King. What is really our attitude towards the King? What is our attitude towards what He gives us? What is our attitude towards the graces that we are receiving every day? If these things that we receive from Him make us humble, then we know what to do with what we are receiving from Him. But if we are proud, egocentric, then we will not invest on what He has entrusted to us. And we will never have that feeling of joy, of sharing with the kingship of Jesus. Let us prepare ourselves for the end. Let us prepare ourselves for His return.